You spent a lot of time being someone who stands up for the rights of others. Howie Hawkins, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Okay, so you're running for governor, and you're running at a time where this might be like one of those Pataki type years with Cuomo. There's a lot going. And speaking of a Cuomo then, here's a Cuomo now. What do you think of Andrew Cuomo and all the corruption and everything that's going on right now?
Well, it's pay to play.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done that in this state for 40 years. You know, we think we're going to develop particularly the upstate economy by giving tax breaks to the rich people and giving corporations subsidies and tax breaks. And that's called trickle-down economics. But it don't trickle down to the working class. And he's just taking it to a new level, both in terms of the amount he's doing of that kind of thing and the corruption all around him. I mean, everybody close to him is headed off to prison, including his other buddies in the 3 men in a room. You know, Silver and Skelos.
Okay, so he is, though, skewing to the left. Would that please you? In some regards, it would, right?
I think we can take credit for the things he did. He more talks left and walks right still.
Right.
But the ban on fracking,
right,
the paid family leave, movement toward $15 minimum wage, although upstate, we're going to look at it after we get to $12.50 in a few years. And, you know, the scholarships for public college, which really isn't anywhere near free tuition, but he's moved our way. And I think we got 5% of the vote, and he said, I want to run for president. Well, how can I get those votes back? So he made some gestures to us. Yeah. So I think we made a difference. Of course, we'd rather be in office because we won't water down these programs we're talking about.
All right. Fair enough. Manaski.
Let me get your take. I saw in your pamphlet there the democratic socialism element of it. Explain what that means to you, and then are you on the train with this Ocasio? I can't think of her name. Yeah,
I think she and Nixon and Bernie Sanders are old-fashioned liberals. They want social programs to mitigate some of the problems that get generated by the capitalist economy. They're not talking about, if you look it up in the dictionary, what socialism is, which means social ownership of the major means of production. In the private sector, that would be cooperatives. In the public sector, would be public enterprises that are democratic. We have a New York Power Authority, but it's by no means democratic. So when we talk about socialism, we're talking about extending democracy into the economy. When you go to work, you lose your Bill of Rights. When you cross the threshold of the workplace, you're subject to another person's will. And that's not freedom. So really it's about having freedom in the economy. And where you have larger scale enterprises, you know, this country was founded on small property owners, you know, artisans with their own tools and farmers. And they were their own boss. But as production got bigger, you went working for a boss and you were subject to their will, which is not freedom. In fact, they called the system the wage slavery system. And they talked about cooperative production. So that's what we want. We want economic democracy.
Can you explain more of this? You lose your rights when you go to work someplace else.
You don't have the right to assemble. You don't have the right to free speech. You basically are told what to do. You can't say no if you want to keep your job.
But you do have the right to free speech. Okay, you added the if you want to keep your job part.
Right.
Because we do have the right to I don't want to work here anymore, and I'm going to speak out. I've done that, and I will tell you, it does bite you in the butt a little bit. It prevents you from getting that next job sometimes, makes the next job a little more difficult when you go after an employer. Yeah. So, but at the same time, you have the right to do it. I certainly am not with you on all of that, but there are some things. For instance, you want to see 100% clean energy by 2030. There's a president right now that's going to be coming to Utica on Monday who has reversed is in the process of reversing everything that Obama did in that regard because it costs so much for business. Can't there be a happy medium where business can survive and we can think about the environment?
We had a study done in 2013 by some professors from Cornell and Stanford, engineers, scientists, economists. And if we move to 100% clean energy by 2030, it would create 4.5 million jobs. It would lower electric costs by half. It would be a huge stimulus to the economy. So in the end, you know, we're lowering the cost of doing business by going to clean energy as opposed to sticking with fossil fuels and nuclear power. And the cost of not doing this, I mean, we had 90-degree temperatures under the Arctic Circle, within the Arctic Circle last week. We have forest fires up there. We're putting carbon into the atmosphere 10 times faster than the last time we had massive volcanic activity 252 million years ago, and it led to a 5-degree increase in temperatures, and 97% of species went extinct. I mean, we're on the precipice of a real disaster.
Yep.
So, we've got to do that. And, when you have China and India no longer able to grow food for themselves, you're creating, total, the Pentagon recognizes that climate is the biggest security threat to our country.
You're a former teacher in the New York City public schools. 17 years there?
No, that's my running mate.
Oh, you're running mate. I was going to. How did you get to Syracuse? Okay.
No, I'm a Teamster. I've been a construction worker. I was a Marine. I'm different kind of career path.
However, here's what you stand for: clean energy by 2030, guaranteed health care to all. And it's interesting. The only ones that are kind of left behind when it comes to health care in New York State is the middle class, the very struggling middle class. Everybody else seems to be taken care of. Homes for all, good public schools, sanctuary state. We have a congressional candidate right now who's a Democrat, Anthony Brindisi, in Albany in the Assembly, and he is against that. You're all in on New York being a sanctuary city. You want it to be a sanctuary state,
right?
And you might get there with the way Cuomo's going right now.
I would say he's been better than most governors, but I believe in what we have inscribed on the Statue of Liberty. That we are the refuge, we're the example for the world, and we need immigrants to pay for our Social Security because they do a lot of the work that people here aren't willing to do now in the fields and getting our crops in. And I've talked to a lot of farmers up in Wayne County, the apples, the dairy farmers. ICE coming in and grabbing people right off the farm and disrespecting the farmer as well as the immigrant.
That is a problem in that they can't find American citizens to do these jobs. That is a fact, and we're seeing that all over. It's no more. It's extremely popular in Texas, where you wouldn't expect it. But those Texas farmers, without finding people that are coming over across the border, they struggle with keeping their businesses going.
Alabama, too. They cracked down on immigrants, and farmers went crazy. The crops rotted in the field.
The immigration thing, we only got a couple minutes left, but that's a security issue for the country. Why not be pro-immigration but against, anybody can come here. You just got to tell us you're here. You talk about what the Statue of Liberty says. And
I agree with that. We should have border check-ins when you check in. I'm pretty much for letting anybody come in and wants to work or needs refuge from violence abroad. We should be open to refugees.
But coming in legally?
Legally, yeah.
So what do you do?
Sanctuary state,
what do you do?
Then you don't need a
What do you do with the
state.
people that haven't come legally?
Well, then they're violating the law, and you prosecute them. The problem we have now, people show up at the border points for asylum,
and we're turning them away.
We're not even letting them in to, be processed.
Right. You're not going to win.
Well, we'll see. You said it was a Pataki year. I might be the Pataki this year.
It might be. But what do you want? If you don't win, what do you want to accomplish?
Well, our slogan is demand more. We want more reforms like we got last time. We get a big vote. That moves the whole political process our way. We want to demand more, like Ralph Nader says. We got to raise our expectations of government. We got so much corruption. We just got to talk about clean government. We have a whole set of reforms for that. And then more than piecemeal reforms, we need system change. That's where the democratic socialism or economic democracy comes in, because we got an economy that's growing blindly, relentlessly, consuming the environment, creating real crises, and inequality's growing, and poverty kills. We always know that people of color have had lower life expectations because they're lower on the income scale. Now the white working class, their life expectancies are declining because we got downward mobility, and we got rent and health care costs skyrocketing, and our wages have been stagnant for 40 years.
All right, Howie Hawkins, you've been an activist for many years. When did you first stand up for what you believe in?
Well, 1964, I was 12 years old. Reagan's campaigning against the fair housing law to get it repealed by referendum, and then the Democrats sat the Dixiecrats instead of the Freedom Democrats, and I asked myself, where's my party? And as I grew up in teenage years and was worried about the draft, the war escalated. I got drafted. So, I was just
been a long time. You're still kicking.
Yeah, over 50 years.
All right. Howie Hawkins, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll keep an eye on what you're doing. You're always, listen, the Green Party, you're pulling some numbers. It's to the point where you're making some waves.
I think, a lot of people don't vote because they don't like the two parties
I get it.
The choices are given, and we're trying to give them an option.
Thanks. Howie Hawkins.